Well, hello, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Bing, a product marketing manager at Mapbox for Search. This session is a 25-minute session. It's all about what's new in Mapbox Search. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. Like to answer your question, Mark, all session will be recorded and you will be able to see it after the session. Should be a couple hours. Captions are available in multiple languages if you need. Please submit your questions through Zoom Q&A features so our speaker will be able to see it. And lastly, if you want to discuss more wonderful build sessions, please just explore the Zoom event. All right. Before we get started, just those are all about my logistic things. And let's get into the good stuff. We are very excited to have some of our search team leads with us today. They are Chris Byers, Senior Data Product Managers, Robert Florence, Senior Product Manager for Geocoding, and Jordan Palmer, Engineer Manager for Search. With that, Chris, I will hand it over to you to kick things off. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Bing. All right, let's get started. We're going to start off with just a brief overview of what our search portfolio is. We have four main products within search. We have the geocoding API, which is focused on addresses and places, both in like a forward search, looking for an address and looking for the coordinate associated with it, and reverse, where you're like starting with a coordinate and finding what the address or place is at that coordinate. Address autofill takes that geocoding API, combines it with a little map for reference, and lets you do form fills on websites for, say, taking orders, that sort of thing. It makes it really easy for the customer to fill in the address, get it all structured correctly for a form input, and gives them a little map for a reference and make sure that that coordinate is correct for wherever their location is. Even lets them move it and do a little correction on the fly if you need to. Searchbox API is like a single box search that incorporates both the address and place functionality from geocoding and adds on POI search, both for like the names of POIs as well as categories or brands, and allows fast user input for, say, navigation or finding a location for travel or anything like that. And lastly, we have our boundaries data, which takes all of the places around the world and actually associates them with the polygons that represent them. And boundaries is both like administrative, postal, local, statistical, all the things. It's great for analytics, BI platforms, delivery zones and service area filters, those sorts of things. Next. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about how we've expanded coverage this year. We're always working to expand coverage for both addresses, POIs, places, and for boundaries all around the world. And not just coverage in terms of more things, but also coverage in terms of more metadata about those things. So filling in attributes that may have been missing for some things or enriching things with the stuff that was no longer previously not present. Next, we're going to talk about boundaries. We had a big update to boundaries earlier this year. And here we have this illustrated by the admin 3 level in Turkey. We added a ton of new neighborhood level, which is what this layer is called, features in Turkey. And if we go to the next slide, we also added around 107,000 new features across all of Europe. A lot of those we also updated. We had 56,000 updates and affected about 44 countries. Added a bunch of stuff in the Netherlands, the UK, and we added a couple of new worldviews for folks who need to have like a localized experience. Next. As a brief refresher on boundaries, this is, again, our Polygon data set. We got about 5 million features globally with not just superficial coverage around the world, we also go deep. So you can think of this as covering high-level features such as like the districts and regions of a particular area, all the way down to, say, neighborhoods or say, the arrondissements in France. And that covers the entire world, as granular as we can go. We have a lot of expertise on the team for boundaries. We have a couple of geodesists on the team, and we have folks that are very proficient with international boundaries. And it's also worldview aware, so that you can present the map in the way that it's expected within a given region. Next. It's available within a couple of different formats. So you can use our Mapbox tile service for really fast, performant maps using boundaries. This is great for, say, analytics where you're joining data to another data set and visualizing it. Or we also offer flat files now, so that you can take the actual raw data that goes into boundaries and do geospatial analysis or high throughput places level geocoding, and then do derivations and calculations with your own data plus boundaries data to understand what's happening within a particular region. Next. If you're interested more in boundaries, we do have another session later this week on Wednesday, September 10th at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to be presenting along with Ross Paulson, who's a principal solutions engineer at Tableau. Tableau has been using Mapbox boundaries for a while now for all of the geospatial analytics that's in part of that platform. So we're going to be talking about how they incorporated that data, and how you can use it to make really useful insights out of the data that you have that has a geospatial property to it. Also, another expansion we have in Search is a collaboration between the Search team and the Maps team. We incorporated the really high quality POI data that we have within Search into the map, both expanding the coverage, richness, and the freshness of the data on the map, and also made it possible so that you can do queryability for the POIs on the map, start pulling information about those from Search. So it's a much better interactive experience between those two platforms. I'm going to be passing it over to Robert now to talk a little bit more about addresses.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, everyone. I'm the product manager for geocoding here at Mapbox. First thing I want to talk about is coverage here. So just this year alone, we've added coverage in 15 new countries, a lot in the Middle East and North Africa, a lot in South Africa. We're on our way to covering 35 total new countries this year, which will bring us to about 150 worldwide in terms of where we have address coverage. We're really aligned with like where people are trying to power things like in-car app nav. So on the screen here, basically what you're seeing is where cars that are rolling off the line to be sold in those countries will be powered by Mapbox Search. So we can go to the next slide. And so that expanded list of like the 15 countries up 35 total this year, that's just kind of like part of the ongoing improvements we do to coverage and quality. So at Mapbox, we source and ingest thousands of constantly updating data sets. So some are open source, but a lot are also privately licensed. And on top of that, we work with multiple partners that are experts at going out and digging for new data sources that aren't obviously available. This means like finding like local government sources in even obscure locations to make sure that we have like the best possible address coverage available for you in geocoding, so that any country where we have coverage, we have a very high quality bar. And what does make our product really accurate and reliable is not just that we have all those data sources, but how we put them together. And you can see on this slide, these zip code boundary updates, these place features, these are global sets of polygons similar to what Chris is talking about with boundaries. And we use those to validate like that the addresses we have the correct metadata or located correctly. You see on there at the bottom, the number of rooftops we added. There's another area where we synthesize those thousands of data sets by looking at rooftop building polygons around the world and picking the ones that are the most accurate to the rooftop. And finally, unit level addresses are mentioned here. This has been a big push for us over the last year, is adding apartment units, business suites around the world. So yeah, we have over 500 million addresses around the world today across 150 countries. So Mapbox Geocoding and Searchbox, which takes advantage of this address coverage, are really good choices for international use cases. We can go, yeah. And so all the coverage and the technology we use to provide the most accurate possible locations means we are a very good choice when precision matters for your application. So reverse geocoding in particular, this powers a lot of different very high volume use cases where products that our customers are building, they're gathering location information from IoT devices, GPS trace from cell phones, and they need to make that information human understandable, human analyzable. So our reverse geocoding processes billions of requests, very strict latency requirements. One big category is this like fleets and vehicles, these IoT, these assets. Fleet managers, they have a very challenging job keeping track of assets as they move around, assessing performance, keeping the assets secure, complying with regulatory requirements for cross-border shipments. Our reverse geocoding enables this by giving a real-time understanding of the location and unlocking the historical analysis with our permanent geocoding API. And then when it comes to like pets and people, lots of parents, for example, rely on family trackers to know where their members are, if they're safe. Pet owners want to know where their dog walker is with the dog. Here again, geocoding, reverse geocoding is able to translate just raw location information that might be in the phone or in the device and turn it into something that someone can understand. Say, okay, yeah, my kid is at school right now. That's cool. And this, by the way, goes beyond geocoding, especially with pets and kids. Chris is going to talk about Searchbox later, but Searchbox, which on top of the geocoding coverage puts this POI information like restaurants, schools, etc., can be really helpful for understanding where your family is. So we can go to the next one. And so that first group of use cases there that I was talking about, the logistics and asset tracking for people like fleet managers, for example. We actually recently just a great documentation team that recently put together this interactive demo. So you can kind of share with maybe people in your company or other members of your team, just how simple it is to kind of use our API and put together something that helps customers understand the location of either their shipments or their customers or their assets. So I think the link is on the slide right there. Definitely recommend you check it out. Okay, so we talked about coverage. Relevance is the other big part of providing, an industry-leading search product here. Coverage means, we have what you're looking for, and we have a great location for it, something very precise. But relevance is kind of about, well, do we understand what your user is actually looking for, so that we can deliver that coverage? And taking into account like where that user is and what their query is. So the first thing on the next slide that I'll talk about is in the search box side. So the search box, again, this is the API that combines not just the geocoding coverage, which is zip codes, cities, addresses, but it also adds on top of that, all sorts of points of interest, brands, parks, restaurants, etc. So in category search, this basically functions as a nearby search focused on categories of POI that are going to be in proximity to a specific coordinate. So you can pass through, like, for example, the current location of your user. And then you can set up these predefined category searches for your users with those hot buttons and provide a detailed drop-down list to that user. Or you can use autocomplete to actually suggest those categories as the best response to a user's query. You can do all sorts of different filtering here for your use case. You can also do reverse lookups here. For example, like you've got a location, you want to find what the nearest coffee shop is. That's a category. So you can do a reverse lookup just within a specific category. So category search, very good for providing shortcuts for common user queries. It just makes the search experience in general a lot faster and more intuitive for users. And so to come back to kind of geocoding, and coming back to how we're able to surface this coverage when your users are actually looking for it. With international products, there's obviously like a really wide variety of ways that users search for things, not only in different languages, but there's all sorts of different styles of typing addresses or apartment units or even POIs into a search box. And users also often make mistakes. Lots of different misspellings, kind of erroneous information, missing parts of the query. And even in the backend cases where you're just geocoding a bunch of stuff in your database, lots of our clients, they have a database of customer or vendor addresses, but they're a mess. There's very little standardization. And most geocoders today basically use heuristics, hard-coded rules to do address search, but it's not a good solution to those problems. And so to make sure that we are getting the right result every time, we've labeled and trained a vast amount of it, our own address data to create this query understanding and ranking model that helps us get the right result. So on the next slide, just to show a quick example, here's an example of a query that's got quite a few mistakes. You see things like this a lot in a customer's database of like, of addresses they've collected. And with this new model, we are able to basically provide the result the user is looking for. You can give us a much more messed up query than this, but I think I wanted to have something on the slide that we could at least understand the inputs for. And so today, ranking is rolled out worldwide. Query understanding is rolled out to a really significant portion of our traffic. Will be at 100% by the end of the year. And so, yeah, this wraps up the geocoding section, and I'll pass it to Jordan.
Hey, thank you, Robert. So my name is Jordan Palmer, and I'm a manager for Search. And I'm going to wrap us up talking about localization. So in Search, we are obsessed with data quality. We never consider ourselves like done with quality. And at any given time, we have dedicated teams that are working together to improve our quality, whether that's coordinate precision, metadata fill rates, or just coverage in general. And a really important aspect to quality is not just that we have data in every city possible, but that the data is meaningful to a local audience. So let's say hypothetically, I'm like a native German living in Germany. I want to be able to search for, the word swimming pool, and I want to be able to, one, do that in German, and then two, get back a response that's also correctly in German. And one of the challenges in trying to build a global POI data set is that from all of the different sources that we use, sometimes we get a certain percentage, like 5 or 10% of our POIs that might be coming from a very English biased audience. And so we want to be able to make those available to people in the local audience. Next slide. So in order to do this, we have several localization efforts that are running in parallel. First, we go through and find cases where we might have English or other translations that are in the wrong language, such as within POI names and categories, and then translate those into the local language. And second, we're continually adding support for just additional languages that can be inputted into the search. So that's where I'm actually able to enter in, German or Italian or, French and get back the results that I'm expecting. This year, we've translated POIs in over 32 countries, and we now support querying in over 12 different languages. Now, this effort is far from over, and we're working towards localizing even more languages and countries in the coming months. And tangentially related, Mapbox offers a number of offline services, from maps to navigation to search. And we have another talk coming tomorrow where we're going to talk about offline search, but all of the localization efforts I just mentioned are available for offline as well as online. Okay, next slide. And with that, I want to thank you for attending our session today. I want to quickly share that we have other search-related talks this week that are going to be going on throughout Build. These include a deep dive into the geocoding API, Searchbox versus the geocoding API, Mapbox Search JS, offline search, and address autofill. So hope to see you in those other sessions.
Now let's get into the Q&A. Very exciting moment. I thought we have a couple questions come in.
Yeah, I think we've answered quite a few questions already in the Q&A. We do have a couple of them open still. One question is, can I add my own proprietary tile sets into the search database? So on top of default search results, it will look for features loaded on my map. There is a way to sideload basically data into search results with the Search SDK. You can load data into that. I think we'll be talking a little bit about that in our offline search session tomorrow. However, you won't have total connectivity between the map and the search results in that case. Jordan, I don't know if you wanted to speak to this in more detail.
Yeah, we'll save that for tomorrow's session. Yeah.
Okay. Can search be based on current view only? Yes. So you can actually set a bounding box for your search, and you can set that to be relevant to the current map view. That should be something we can link from documentation also as a follow-up.
I noticed one in the chat. It didn't make it to the Q&A, but Chris asked, Mapbox Search used to support searching by an airport's unique code. So geocoding, as of late last year, geocoding historically has included some limited POI data, and part of that was some airport codes in there. That coverage has now moved to Searchbox API. So airports we consider to be a point of interest. And so if you have any type of point of interest like an airport or a park or a restaurant or a brand or really anything like that that's not specifically like an address or a zip code or a city, things like that, then the right choice is to use the Searchbox API for that product. And geojson.io is powered by the geocoding API, so you will be limited to only addresses and places there.
Okay. Someone was asking, we have many clients in India. Is there any support for it? So we do actually provide some support for India. There's POI data available in India live in Searchbox right now. Address data, currently we support places results. So those are going to be places like districts, regions, neighborhoods, those sorts of results. Currently, we do not support residential addresses in India. We are working on some improvements to that right now, actually.
We have another one in the Q&A that says, how do you balance open source data and licensed data, and what makes expanding into new regions like Middle East, South America challenging from a data perspective? So a lot of places, outside places like the US, Eastern Europe, smaller countries in particular, they have a less robust kind of centralized place where you can just grab all the address data. And so Mapbox, we work with partners who are experts in going out and actually like finding and sourcing this data explicitly for us. And so this is kind of where like the open data and the private data come in. You'll see products out there that like they have address coverage in a lot of places, but a lot of times what you'll find is it's just pure like open source data that they're just getting from OSM, for example. And so what we do in regions like that where we know the open source data isn't really high quality enough is we work to go create that data in those countries, so that we can deliver a high quality experience there. We layer that on top of whatever we have from open sources.
Okay, someone is asking, a prior session showed mapping within a building. Does the search show the place within a building or the address of the building? Honestly, it's a little bit of a mix in some cases for POIs. If you're looking for a POI, most of the time we are going to try to locate that POI as close to the location of, say, that entity, that business entity within the building as we can. If we can't locate that, then we fall back to the overall building location. So I get a centroid of that building for the address, which is more what geocoding focuses on. So geocoding, if you're looking for an address, you're probably going to get the rooftop point of that address within the building itself.
All right, I know we have a more question come in, but I think we're just on time. I'll make sure everybody can get to the next sessions. But if we could not answer your question live today, we will make sure we email you and answer all your questions. Feel free to join all rest of the search sessions. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, speakers.
Thanks
Bye.
all.